So how do you use astrology? You might be thinking, come on Abhishek, are we really doing this? Now, if you know me or if you have been watching our content, excuse me, we have not really gone into certain topics which were kind of woo-woo or pseudoscience. But this is different. I'm not just talking about average astrology. And I'm not even talking about an advice from a random person. This is from Chanakya. And here's how this video is actually a little bit different and a lot more valuable. He gives 2 ways to use astrology to improve your life. 2 ways. 2 simple ways which might be a bit unusual for you, but it's effective. With that said, it's going to be worth it, so make sure to watch till the end of the video. Let's begin. Hello guys, welcome to Book Ideas, where we tell you interesting ideas from interesting books. The idea that we are picking is from the book called Chanakya in Daily Life by Radhakrishnan Pillai. In this book, Radhakrishnan Pillai takes the teachings of one of the greatest, smartest minds in our history, one of the greatest strategists, and takes his advice and packages it in such a way that we could use in our life to improve our life. So if you want to get this book, if you want to check this out, I highly recommend it, by the way. You can click the link in the description. With that said, let's begin with what are the 2 ways to use this astrology. So what are the 2 ways to use astrology? Now before I begin with that, here's what you need to know. Astrology is kind of like how Radhakrishnan Pillai puts it in the book, is about how when astrology came to be, the seers or the sages back then, they understood that everything in life is connected. We are never completely isolated. We are always connected and we are always interdependent. So depending on that relationship, they built this science of astrology. Not only that, another thing he mentions is astrology is called as Jyotish Shastra. So Jyoti means light, and Ish means Ishvara or God. It's like a guiding light that it's like a light that makes your path clear to the God, that takes you to God. So in India back then, I remember Sadhguru telling this, that in India what we see, our culture is we seek enlightenment or we seek dissolution. Now let's not get into what that really means and all that, because it could get a bit crazy or a bit too spiritual. Now how do you use this practically? Chanakya, here's the first way to use astrology practically. So Chanakya said he should receive guidance by seeing his astrologer. That was his lines. He wrote this for the king. Now here's why this advice is something that you should take seriously, especially when it's coming from Chanakya. 2 reasons. One, Chanakya was very strong at logic and practicality. He knew a lot of topics well, very logically. He was a very well-read, well-studied person, but also he knew the practical aspects of it. Vedas or different literature, political science, and so many things. That's the first reason. Second reason, the most important reason was Chanakya himself was an expert in astrology. In fact, he was such an expert, and in fact he understood its importance so much that he wrote one whole chapter on astrology, on picking the right astrologer for the king in his arthashastra. Now, to add on to this, Radhakrishnan Pillai says if you can't always look for an astrologer, he says here's what you need to know. Astrology can never be wrong, but astrologer can. He also says that astrology is mathematics. So an astrologer also have to be good at understanding mathematics. It's very, very highly based on permutations and combinations. So he says you can't always find it, but what you can do is, instead of going and finding an astrologer, they could be wrong, you don't know, so you can study about it yourself. Just check it out, breeze through it, understand what is the principle behind it. And he also speaks about how Chanakya understood the importance of studying this by themselves, that Chanakya added this astrology as a subject for kings to study them. To study, not to just find an astrologer, but for the king to study. So that's one. The other part about it is he says try small tips. But he says be careful. Like, in newspaper you get daily astrology tips, but he says be careful. The reason is you need to have this understanding on how do you use the advice. Otherwise you could get caught up. It's like, to put it in his words, it's like walking on a razor's edge. If you don't have a good guide, if you're not careful enough, you can fall into your mental trap. Now, here comes the second way to use astrology. Chanakya said, wealth will slip away from the foolish person who continually consults the stars. For wealth is the star of wealth. What will the stars do? Capable men will certainly secure wealth at least after 100 trials. It could be, you might be thinking, why? What's going on here? Why the contradiction? Didn't Chanakya just say that you have to consult the stars or get an astrologer? Yes, but there is another part of life that you can't deny that helps in you succeeding, which is your willpower and your work. If you don't work, then if you sit there and you say, I'm not going to work, astrology will not work. So, he also said, even Radhakrishnan Pillai, even he says, do not depend on astrology. Take it as a guidance, learn about it, and then make your decision. It's like this, when you study for exams, if you're not the by-hearting type, I wasn't the by-hearting type, you go through the guide, you understand how to write the answer, you use that as a reference to learn how to write the answer. You may not copy the whole answer, just learn it and then put it down in the paper. You'll use it as a reference on, okay, this is how I can answer, and depending on that, depending on the situation, depending on the question, you kind of modify it. That's the kind of a role astrology should play. You should not discount your effort or your work. So with that said, guys, those are the two ways to use astrology to improve your life. Now, this is something that's a bit weird topic for us because this was written long back. And a lot of experts say a lot of what we learn has been tampered with. The planetary or the stars position, constellation position have changed a little bit since then, and they're also continually changing, so it might not be up to date. But with that said, it's an interesting topic, it's an interesting thing to explore. It's Chanakya's advice, not mine, but I think it's worth looking into. Now, if you felt like you learned something of value, something interesting, something different, something that could help your life, then leave a like and hit that subscribe button because we have a lot more book ideas videos coming up. And also, if you have a book that you would like to recommend us to pick ideas from, then you can drop that book suggestion in the comments below. So finally, this is Abhishek signing off. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.